Hello, I'm going to walk you through The Road Not Taken by Frost. It is a very popular poem. It is a poem that is often referred to or alluded to in graduation speeches or retirement party speeches. It is a poem that works well at moments of transition, looking back upon what one has accomplished and looking forward to what one hopes to accomplish in the future. So it is a nice poem for those moments. But it's also a poem that sometimes is limited in its reading, that we don't give it its full breadth of interpretation. So without further ado, let me jump into reading the poem aloud, and then we'll talk about some of the literary devices employed by Frost to create meaning or meanings. Just as there are two roads, there may be more than one meaning in the poem. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, and leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads unto way, I doubted I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. This is the last three lines of the poem that the speaker, the speech maker, often alludes to when talking at a graduation ceremony or a retirement party. But as I tell my students, don't jump to the last stanza. You must deal with everything that comes before that. Also, I think it's reductionist to say, here's the truth of the poem, and refer to those last three lines, because there's more than possible one truth to the poem. So let us go to the top, and I'm just going to note some literary devices before we start unpacking some of the meaning of the poem. The first literary device I have bolded for you is the word stanza. And so this is a four-stanza poem. 1, 2, 3, 4. And each stanza has 5 lines. So it's a 5-lined stanza. And we call that a quinton. I'm circling that on the other side here if my pointer works. So there we have the quinton. So 5 lines per stanza. Before I talk about meter, I want to go down to rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme here is A, B, A, A, B. All right? And when we're writing or annotating our poems, we would put an A, B, A, B. So each stanza has that same pattern to it. What's interesting is that typically rhyme picks up the pace. It could increase the pace. It also could create a sing-song quality, a nursery rhyme-like quality. But Frost doesn't do that here. Frost's rhyme scheme actually slows down the pacing of the poem, possibly to get the speaker of the poem, the reader of the poem, to pause along this journey, to look at both of the roads that have diverged, come to a stop, come to a pause, and decide which road is the best road to take. Now, not only does Frost slow down the pacing with the rhyme scheme, but I'm going to suggest that he slows down the slows down the pacing with the meter. The poem is written in tetrameter, which you see the definition over here is a 4 feet of verse per line. In this case, Frost mixes up the meter. He has iamp, which is unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. The iamp is the most common meter in the English language, in English poetry. It's all of Shakespeare's sonnets. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Or in speeches, in Shakespeare's plays, when an important character is given a speech of great import, Shakespeare will slip into iambic pentameter to give the speech a little bit more poetry, if you will. Is this a dagger I see before me? To be or not to be. We have the iambic, or the iamp is the most popular form of meter. But Frost also uses anapast, which is 2 unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable. So in the iamb, we would have unstressed, stressed. The antepast we have unstressed, unstressed, stressed. To help you see this and understand it a little bit more, let me switch my screen real quick to the whiteboard behind me. So behind me, you'll see here's a whiteboard, and it has the first 3 lines of the poem by Frost. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. Sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler, long I stood. And so when I said tetrameter, 4 feet of poetry per line, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And each line is a tetrameter in this poem. So it has 4 feet of verse per line. Now, when I said that Frost mixes iamb and antepast, he does so in this fashion. In the first 3 lines, you'll see iamb, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. This third foot here, he uses antepast. So we have unstressed, unstressed, stressed. And so he does the same pattern in the first 3 lines of the poem. He sets up this pattern. Now, if you wanted to go for a quicker moving poem, you could have kept with that iambic tetrameter, and you could have had couplets or alternating rhymes at the end, and it might give it a quicker pacing to it. But I think that he slows down the pacing by interrupting the iamb with the antepast. And I think he slows down the pacing with the rhyme scheme he employs in this poem. I think that's intentional. Nothing happens by accident. Now, in the next 17 lines of poetry, he continues to have 3 iambs and 1 antepast in each line of poetry. So he's moving that antepast around to change the rhythm, change the pacing of the poem, possibly to get us to stop and pause at a particular point in the poem. So that's the meter he's using here. Once again, you don't need to memorize all these different meters, all these different feet, unless you're going to be a poet, if you will, or possibly an English teacher, or you're just curious about how poets go about creating their poems. So those are some of the rhetorical or literary devices employed by Frost to create meaning. Now, I'm going back to the first stanzas. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. Now, I like the word yellow because yellow suggests a decay, if you will, or a change in season, if you would. It's in wood, so yellow wood. So I can visualize the trees turning yellow. Now, I don't want to go too far with kind of like the transition is to death, but I think it's suggested there. Yellow setting up the winter season. Winter typically, archetypically, is seen as a season of when things die, if you will. Yellow I also like because Frost is often reduced to the poet of the L.L. Bean catalog. Your rustic oranges and yellows and fiery reds, and you think of plaid jackets. But I think that, of course, I'm joking that he's the poet of L.L. Bean, but it's a reductionist to say that, if you will, but I'm having some fun there. So we have the yellow wood, but the next 3 lines we have his use of an Aftera. Which is this kind of repetition of and. Typically, it gets a rhythm going. It could be used to move the poem along. It could be used to create drama. And so Frost employs an Aftera, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down as far as I could. And so we have the speaker of the poem wishing he could. I wish I could travel both. I wish I could go down both of these trails, but I can't. But I really like the 3rd line here too. We have that comma. So we have that comma here. And be one traveler. Pause. Long I stood. End of the line. And so we stand there long with the speaker of the poem. Long I stood looking down these 2 roads. I think it's a nice use of punctuation to pause us at that moment. And so we see how the rhyme scheme, as well as the meter, as well as punctuation, slows us down, causes us to pause and think about the decision that's ahead of us. Next stanza starts with a good transition word. Then, time order transition. Then took the other. I looked down the other one. Just as fair. Just as fair. So these two roads, they're just as fair. They look similar. And perhaps the better claim, maybe it's a little bit better, because it was grassy and wanted wear. I love the pun possibly with the wanted here. We know wanted means lack of wear. But also, in some way, I hear like the path or the road saying, "Oh, I want you to wear me down a little bit. Come this way," kind of like beckoning the speaker of the poem, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Please, I want you to wear me down a little bit here. If I'm using personification, just something I'm thinking about. Though, as for the passing there, had warned them equally about the same. Fair, same, just as fair, and about the same. So these two roads that diverge in the Yellow Woods, they're pretty similar, it seems. They're just as fair. They're the same. And now we have the next stanza starting with and. And both that morning equally lay. Oh my gosh, equally. So we have just as fair, same, and equally. These two roads that are going to determine the outcome of your life are pretty much the same. Pretty much the same. Just as fair, equally lay. So it's kind of like, but it's going to make all the difference. I'm gonna come back to that after we get through the poem. In leaves no step had trodden black. So no one's walked down these at this moment. No one has walked down these paths right now. In leaves no step has been seen. Nothing's been trodden in black. Oh. And we have that nice exclamation here. I kept the first for another day. I'm going to come back to this. I plan on coming back to this. Yet the speaker of the poem knows. Yet knowing how way leads onto way, I doubted if I should ever come back. Yeah, if I ever get back here, I'm going to go down this other road. But I know once I choose this path, I'm on this path. And we can't go back. We can't go back again and redo it. We're never going to return to this place. And so it sounds like a good idea. Yeah, possibly I'll come back to this spot and take the other path. But the speaker is honest enough to say, I don't think I'll ever come back this way or make it back this way. But if I did, I'd take that other one. I'd take the first one. So we have the speaker there, standing with the two roads before him or her, and just trying to decide which way to go. What path does the speaker step at? What's the next step? What does the poet tell us? The poet doesn't tell us which one. The poet suggests something. The speaker suggests something. I shall be telling this with a sigh. I shall be, that shall. First person, future tense. So they're thinking, I will be one day, someday, I will be telling this story. I shall be telling. I haven't made that step yet, but I can see myself someday telling this. But the speaker of the poem has not yet walked down that road. And think about how many times in your life you've made these grand plans. This is what I'm going to do. But then when it comes closer, when you have to make that step, you don't. And you take the more comfortable route. Or you reassess which direction you want to go in. So we're not sure exactly what route the speaker takes. We know what route the speaker plans on taking. I shall be telling with a sigh some ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now, I like that and I, because it plays into kind of like that ambiguity I see in the poem about this decision. And I took, if I skip over that dash should slow things down. And if I skip over, and I took the one less traveled by. There's a certainty to it. I took the one that was less traveled by, and that's made all the difference. But if I read the dash, and little pause, end of a line, a little bit pause, as if they're coming to like and I took the one less traveled by. There might be a little hesitancy here. I shall be telling of this, and possibly hesitating a little bit, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. They're hoping, or we're hoping that the decisions we make will make all the difference in the world. Now, it's the typical reading is that we picked the one of the less conventional. We took the path that was not what was expected of everyone. We became the artist. We became the rebel. We became someone that didn't follow the expectations, and that has made all the difference in kind of a celebratory way. And that's a nice reading of the poem. I don't want to dismiss that completely. But I also think that since the roads are just as fair and same and equally lay, they really don't look that different, that there's also the kind of like troubling thought, the kind of like the futility of the choices we make, that they don't make that big of a deal in the end. That the roads aren't that different. They're pretty much the same, equally lay. And we can tell ourselves at the end of that journey, that has made all the difference. We don't oftentimes think about that alternative reading or that other reading. Two roads diverged. Two readings emerge in the reading of this poem. That one is that's celebratory, that I made the right decision and it's made all the difference in my life. Or the roads are pretty much the same, and whatever choice I make, it is what it is, and hopefully I shall be saying this. Hopefully I'll say in the future, I made the right decision. But there's not certainty there. There's not certainty there. So I think that it's a seemingly simple poem that suggests only one kind of affirmative reading on the surface. But if we look at what Frost is doing, having to slow down, think about these choices, looking down both paths, seeing that both paths are pretty similar, and that we hope that we make the right decisions. There's also this kind of like underlying, like, does it really matter, these decisions? Is there a futility? Hopefully, the decisions we make do make all the differences in our lives. Well, that was just a quick walk through A Road Not Taken. I hope that I got you to think a little bit more about the poem and what the poet might be doing here. And if you get an opportunity, read some more Robert Frost. I know I'll be walking you through some more Robert Frost. But thank you for your attention. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out and ask.